What's going on, Coastal Community Church? How you guys doing this morning? You guys doing good? Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is TJ. I'm one of the pastors here. We're so glad you're joining with us today at 10 a.m. Come on, somebody. You guys doing good? Hey, I just want to let you know, 10 a.m., we have 3 other services, just FYI. If you notice, it's pretty packed in here. If by any chance you wouldn't mind going to an 8:30 service or a 1 o'clock service, I can't really have you go to 11:30 because that service looks like this. So if some of you all that love Jesus and want to help your pastor out, would by any chance go to a different service. This is just a disclaimer. If this is the only service you can come to this service. But if you can go to any other service besides 10 and 11:30, I would greatly appreciate it because we want to put more people in here that are coming for the very first time. Maybe you've been 1,000 times. So we just help a brother out, okay? Help me out. Thank you for that, because next weekend we're starting a brand new series on relationships called Family Matters, and I know, here's what I know is that next weekend is going to be crazy. We're going to be talking to all things relationships. It's going to be a lot of good. It's going to be a good time. I love talking about relationships. It's my favorite subject to talk about. I think I'm good at them. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. We'll find out. And so it's just going to be a great time talking about marriage and singleness and raising kids and all that fun stuff. So you want to be back next week, but today, everybody say today. Today, we are concluding a series called How to Hear from God. But before we conclude that, can you guys help me welcome everybody that's watching online and everybody at our Lighthouse Point location? Come on, Parkland. We love you guys. We're so glad you guys are joining with us. But we have been in a series called How to Hear from God. And one of the most frustrating things in life for me as a Christ follower has been, there have been moments where I'm like, God, I need to hear from you. And it seems like God is silent. Anybody ever experienced those? And here's kind of the big idea behind this series that we've been talking about every single week. And it's simply this. God wants you to hear his voice even more than you desire to hear it. So as much as you desire to hear it, I want you to know God wants you to hear his voice so much greater than you desire to hear it. That is the good news. The bad news is that the reason we aren't hearing God's voice is because of the noise of this world and the noise in our head. And so we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks, how do we tune into the frequency of God? And we've covered a lot of different things. And today, I want to talk to you about how to hear God's voice through others. How to hear God's voice through us. And I want to start by asking you a question today. And here's a question. Have you ever said to yourself, don't do it? Don't do it. Then you did it. And you know you messed up. And then there's that little voice inside of you that says, I should have listened to that person's wise advice. But I didn't because I thought I knew better. Am I talking to the right crowd? Who's experienced that? Okay. Just this section. Okay, I see what's up. Center, you're like, holy. Cheap seats? Okay, good. Sorry, you're not cheap. They were actually the most expensive. I don't know about you, but I've done this so many times in my life. Like the most recent was the time I was CrossFitting. This wasn't that long ago. I was CrossFitting, and the day before I had gotten my first bar muscle up. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a pull-up, and then you continue and you push yourself up above the bar. And it's actually a really hard compound movement. I'd gotten my first one the day before. I was very proud of myself. The next day, they programmed like 30 bar muscle-ups, and I was like, the coach goes, who can do bar muscle-ups? And I said, I can do them because I did one yesterday, right? Like, so I'm now qualified to do those. And so we start this workout and I start banging out bar muscle-ups. I'm impressing myself. I'm like, I am awesome. And about 20 reps in, like this pain in my shoulder begins to start. And the coach goes, hey, how long? Because he knows that I'm starting to get slower and not doing them as well. I'm starting to what they call chicken wing them. And he's like, hey, how long have you been doing bar muscle-ups? And I'm like, this is my second day. He's like, you need to stop. And I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm tough. I can go to the pain cave. Like, I can handle this, coach. And so I continued not heeding his wise advice to stop. I go home, I take a shower. As I'm taking a shower, I go to lift my arm to grab the soap, but I can't lift my arm any higher than this. Come to find out, I impinged my shoulder. I had to go to therapy for the next couple of weeks with a doctor in our church. There you are, Justin. Thank you for fixing my shoulder. And all because I didn't listen to the wise counselor because I thought I knew better than the guy that's the professional. And it's not just happened in my adult life. I remember as a kid, I was 5 years old. I'll never forget. I was 5 years old. It was my birthday. Somebody gave me a pocket knife for my birthday. Awesome gift for a 5-year-old. My parents were like, this is not an awesome gift. And I was kicking and screaming. I was like, let me keep the pocket knife. They're like, no, you're gonna cut yourself. And I was like, I promise you I won't cut myself. I'm negotiating with my parents. And they let me negotiate. I negotiated. They're like, if you cut yourself, you can't cry. I'm like, deal. Lo and behold, I'm playing with that pocket knife the next day. Cut my finger. Blood is everywhere. I'm wearing a white shirt, so I can't even hide that I'm bleeding. I come in the house, tears are starting to form, but I'm just gritting it because I'm like, I can't lose the pocket knife. And it's like, in that moment, I knew my parents, I should have listened to them. And here's what I know. So many of us, let me just say this. I know people are judging my parents. It was the 80s, okay? Like anything happened. You didn't even know where your kids were in the 80s, okay? So don't judge my parents. But I've had a lot of don't do it moments in my life. I've had those moments financially. I've had them relationally. I've had them emotionally. I've had them spiritually. And my guess is you have as well. Moments where you received really, really, really wise counsel and you just chose not to follow it. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 15 says, the way of a fool seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. I don't know about you, but have you ever wished you'd listened to the wise counsel of sound and godly people in your life instead of going out and doing whatever you wanted to do? I wonder how much heartache I would have missed out in life if I would have just listened to the wise counsel in life. I wonder how many fewer times I would have sinned and disappointed a holy and just God who gave his life for mine. And we've all had moments like that, but for a lot of us, it wasn't a workout where we didn't listen to a coach, but it was not listening to that friend who told us, don't date that guy. But you were like, I know better, and you dated him anyways, and you have regretted that decision every day since. Or perhaps it was when someone told you, you better slow down with your spending because I noticed you're whipping out a different credit card every time you're paying it. And it seems like you're kind of living on those credit cards. And now you're in a financial hole that you have no idea how you're going to get yourself out of it. Or maybe it was that business partnership that you were telling everybody, no, they are full of integrity and they have values and they have morals. And they were all going, no, I don't think they do. And you realize now that they were right and you were wrong, but you're trapped in that decision. The reality is we're learning how to hear the voice of God. And I think one of the most tangible ways to hear from God is actually through people. That God actually wants to use people. We've talked about how we can hear God through his word, how we can hear God through prayer, how we can hear God through the promptings of the Holy Spirit. But here's what I also know. We can hear God from his people. And you got to remember that God wants you to hear his voice even more than you're desiring to hear it. And I want to remind you that God will regularly use and speak through other people to speak into your life. In fact, I think it might be one of the most common ways that God speaks to each and every one of us. In fact, the Bible, which is the clearest way that God speaks, was written by people that God spoke through. So just think about that. The very thing that is the clearest way was once God speaking through those people into our life. He has a huge, long history of speaking through prophets and preachers, through singers and teachers, through parents, mentors, coaches, friends, and even through your children. I think they're all people that God uses to speak to you daily. In fact, I think every human relationship is potentially designed to be God's mouthpiece into our lives. And my goal today is I just want to dial you into the frequency of God that he might be speaking through some other wise, godly counsel in your life. And to help us do that, we're going to be looking at a story in the Old Testament. If you want to turn to 1 Kings chapter 12, if you have your Bible, and let me kind of just set this up for you. 1 Kings chapter 12, what's happening is there is a transition that is happening in Israel from one king to the next king. And what's happened is we've had King Saul, who was the first king of Israel. Then we had King David, who was like the greatest king in Israel's history. He's a man after God's own heart. Right after David, we have King Solomon, who is the wisest man that ever lived. And so in his kingdom, it has been super prosperous. The people, the Israelites are doing the best they've ever done from a financial outlook in life. And it's transitioning from Solomon to his son, Rehoboam. And at the coronation of an inauguration of his son, Rehoboam, the people come to him and put this request in front of Rehoboam. It says this in 1 Kings chapter 12, verses 4 and 5. It says, your father put a heavy yoke on us, but now lighten the harsh labor and the heavy yoke he put on us, and we will serve you. Rehoboam answered, go away for 3 days and then come back to me. So the people went away. So what's happened is Solomon, during his reign, he excessively taxed the people and he burdened the people of Israel to building buildings and eventually enslaved them because they built the temple and they were building all of these palaces. In fact, during Solomon's time, they said silver is worthless in Solomon's day. That's how prosperous the people were. But because they were taxed so much and because they were worked and driven so hard, they were just flat out exhausted. And so the people make a simple request of Rehoboam as he's taking over reign. And I just want to give you 4 observations today from this story that I think are to be helpful for us as we're looking to God to speak through people. Number 1, you got to pursue godly wisdom from others who can actually be of help. Now, we got to understand there is a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is information. There is more information available today than there has ever been in the history of humanity. We have more information at our fingertips than we've ever had before. So wisdom is not the ability to have information. That's what a lot of people think wisdom. I have all this information. No. Wisdom is the ability to not just take the information and have it, because I know a lot of Christians that know everything about God, they just don't do anything for God. It's the ability to take the information and apply it practically to your life. So it's the actual application of the knowledge that you've gained practically and spiritually and relationally and emotionally in your life. But without the wisdom, the knowledge, it isn't that helpful to us or to others. And so the first thing he does is Rehoboam, he says, hey, go away for 3 days. This is a genius move. It's brilliant. He says, man, I'm going to go seek some wisdom. This is what it says in verse 6. Then Rehoboam consulted the elders who had served his father Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, during his lifetime. How would you advise me to answer these people, he asked. They replied, if today you will be a servant to these people and serve them and give them a favorable answer, they will always be your servants. But Rehoboam rejected the advice that the elders gave him and consulted the young men who had grown up with him and were serving him. So Rehoboam, he makes a smart move, a wise move right off the front. He says, go away and let me seek some wisdom in life. And he goes to the wisest people. He goes to the people that had served his dad, who everybody knows has great wisdom. They have incredible insight because they've been surrounded by the wisest guy that ever lived. They go to him, he hears their advice, and right away he doesn't like their input. Because their input is like, hey, listen, if you lead differently than your dad, if you actually lighten the load and serve these people, hey, I want you to know these people will have your back for the rest of your days. These people will love you. That is what they suggest. But Rehoboam's not willing to do that. He goes to the younger men in order to find out their advice. And we're about to read that. But before we do, can I just give you some insight of what goes through my mind when I read this passage? I talk to people all the time that are like, TJ, I really need to discover what God's will for my life is. How do I discover what God's will for my life is? And honestly, discovering God's will for my life has never been a difficult thing. I think discovering God's will for your life is actually a really, really easy thing. If you spend enough time in His Word, you spend enough time in prayer, you understand the nature of God. Like, it's pretty easy to discern the will of God. If you spend enough time in His presence, I have an easy time discerning what is God's will. I have a hard time actually doing God's will. You're like, why? Well, because I have my own agenda that is different than God's agenda. I have my own ways that typically are different than God's ways. A lot of times I want to build my kingdom instead of building His kingdom. And I'm going to guess I'm not the only one that has that problem. It's obvious Rehoboam had that problem as well. Observation number 2, if you aren't open to changing, then don't bother asking for input. Come on, somebody. Like, this would save me a ton of counseling hours right here. Like, if you don't want to do anything different, stop calling me. Ain't nobody got time for that. Save yourself some time and save me some time. Because He knows where to go and He knows the right questions to ask, but He just discounts the wisdom and the experience and goes, no. I'm going to go see what the people that are my own age, what they think. The people that have no experience, that have no wisdom. This is what it says. The young men who had grown up with him replied, these people have said to you, your father put a heavy yoke on us, but make our yoke lighter. Now tell them, my little finger is thicker than my father's waist, and my father laid a heavy yoke on you. I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions. You want to talk about a dude doubling down. They're like, hey, here's where you need to go back. You need to go back and tell them, you are the man now. And if you think your dad was hard, my dad was hard, you ain't seen nothing yet, boy. You're about to feel the wrath. Observation number 3, you can always find a fool to support your folly. You can always find somebody who would go, yeah, that's a genius idea. The book of Proverbs says a fool was someone who disregarded wise teaching and counsel because they wanted to do their things their way. I found that there will always be supportive people to an agenda of somebody who wants to do unwise things. Like, if you want to justify your drinking and crazy living, you know who you can ask. They will always tell you, you're good, you're fine. You want to justify taking that job solely for the paycheck and the money? I know who a guy you can talk to that will back you up. Why? Because there's always someone who will back your illogic logic. If you want to justify spending all that money all the time, all you got to do is talk to the person that's racking up credit cards and Amazon deliveries. Listen, they know the Amazon delivery person better than they have their kids. 1 Kings 13:14, it says, the king answered the people harshly, rejecting the advice given by the elders. He followed the advice of the young men. In the rest of the passage, basically, he gives them verbatim what they said to him. He says to the people, so just like at the gym, he got wise counsel. He just chose not to take it and do it. You know what happens? The people are like, heck no, and it actually splits the kingdom. It actually divides Israel into 10 tribes and 2 tribes. And they end up being at war with each other for generations to come. I just imagine if Rehoboam would have just heeded the wise advice, how differently would life have been? I think about our lives, if we would have just heeded the wise advice, how different would our life be? One of the privileges I get in life is I get the opportunity invited to go speak at a lot of places throughout the week and periodically on weekends, and I love going on airplanes. There's something about being on airplanes, and if you travel enough, you get status, and so a lot of times I get to board first, and I love boarding an airplane first. It's the best because you can actually have baggage room, but secondly, you get to judge everybody else that walks on. I'm just being honest, because have you seen the fashion at the airport? I'm like, you woke up and chose to wear that here in public? Really? It looks like you just rolled out of bed. And maybe they did, I don't know. But listen, don't hold that up against me. I'm judging people. I'm not judging you. I'm just airport people, okay? It's like the people of Walmart. You know, like you go there, you're like, what, really? They should do like the people of the airport. They should do the people of like Miami airport, because that's even better. It's like, you got a lot of different cultures coming in. You're like, I wonder where they're going in a bikini at the airport. I don't know. And so so like I get on a plane and I love watching the people as they're coming on. And I think about it on a plane. Typically what happens is I'm thinking to myself, man, whoever sits next to me, like they're gonna have an incredible opportunity. Man, they're gonna get an opportunity for the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to sit down with a guy that actually has a lot of godly wisdom. They could get some insight in their life. They could get some revelation. They could actually hear God speak through me into their life. They could radically change their life. And what I've found is that when people get on the airplane, I know right away if they want to talk to me or not. Like it's obvious, and I know that when they don't want to talk to me, I'm thinking it's because they're intimidated by my good looks, or or maybe it's just my charming personality. But here's how I know that they don't want to talk to me, because the moment that they sit down, they put noise-canceling headphones on. And right away, that tells me, like, I'm not interested in hearing anything you have to say. In fact, I don't want you to look at me. I don't want you to talk to me. I don't want you to bother me unless I got to get up and go to the bathroom and get past you. I don't want to see you or do anything with you. In fact, I just want you to disappear. Because what this allows me to do is it allows me to listen to what I want to listen to, my playlist, the voice that I want to hear. And I think at times the God of the universe looks down and he sees you and I. And he's like, I guess they don't want to hear from me. Because here's what I know about so many of us. So many of us walk around with noise-canceling headphones. Number 4, it's difficult to hear from God when you're blocking out the godly voices around you. It's difficult to hear his voice through the mouthpieces he's brought that are trying to scream some truth into your life through the gentle whisper of a person. And say, Rehoboam, he made it about himself. He heard the counsel and he said, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear the voices I want to hear. I want to hear the voices that make me feel good, that are on my agenda, that are wanting to do it my way. And listen, church, we're no different. Because the moment you walk into church and we start talking about sexuality, or we start talking about identity that is so different than what the world is shoving down our throats, a lot of you, what you do is go, no, I don't want to listen to that, la, 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 la. I want to hear what I want to hear. And we reject the godly, wise counsel that God has spoken through his word and through your pastor. And as a result, we tune out the voice of the Lord, who is trying to bring each and every one of us truth that if we apply it, will actually set us free. Why? Proverbs 10:31 says, the mouth of a godly person gives wise advice. What that means is not only do they give it, but we actually have to take it and apply it. Harvard Business Review, they wrote this, which is crazy. Harvard's figured this out, but we can't. Those who are truly open to guidance and not just looking for validation, which is what most of us are looking for. I'm going to you because I want you to validate what I already think. Develop better solutions to problems that they would have had than they would have had on their own. They add nuance and texture to their thinking, and research shows that they can overcome cognitive biases, self-serving rationales, and other flaws in their logic. So the business world has figured out that there is a major benefit to inviting wise counsel into our life, but many of us struggle with it. I learned this a few years ago. Back when we were at Monarch High School, there was a guy that walked into our church. He's probably about 60 years old. His name was Larry. He just recently moved away. And Larry walked in, and I would see him and his wife, Bonnie, every single week. And I noticed one day he wore shorts. It's the only time I ever saw Larry wear shorts. And he had an Iron Man tattoo on the back of his calf. And I thought to myself, this dude is bad. Like that dude did an Ironman, because that's the only reason you get one of those is if you completed an Ironman. And so I was like, man, Larry, we should get together. And I was like, I just wanted to talk about how awesome he was. And we got together and we sat down for coffee and I started asking about his life. Come to find out, Larry ran the largest home healthcare company in the world with offices all over, from Australia to London to all over the United States. His main office was here down in South Florida, but he was traveling like crazy. His $2 billion plus company, CEO of it, buying other home, like just this incredible business guy. And we started building this relationship. We ended up starting a Thursday morning connect group for business leaders that we led together for a long time because we both had a passion for that, which by the way, we're in connect group season right now. So great opportunity for you to sign up for a connect group. But so we were doing this and we were meeting together. And one day, Larry and I were sitting down, we were just talking about life, and he was asking me some advice on things, which I always thought was really interesting because I'm like, Larry, you're way more successful. Why are you asking the 40-year-old punk when you're the 60-year-old executive who's crushing it in life? Why are you asking me for advice? And he'd be like, because I'm always seeking wisdom and guidance, and I think you've got wisdom and guidance. And I remember one day we were sitting down and we were talking about life and what was going on. And I noticed that he was only at church like one weekend or maybe 2 weekends a month because of his travel schedule for that. And I asked Larry this question. I'll never forget it. I said, Larry, what do you want your legacy to be? And he started talking about his kids and his involvement in their life. And he started talking about how he wanted to continue on the board of St. Jude because he was making a huge difference there, and how he wanted to continue on the board of his alma mater and how he wanted to help build the church. And I just said, Larry, with the legacy you want to leave, I don't think your job is conducive to you doing that. And I left it at that. We left the meeting, and 30 days later, he walked up to me and he said, TJ, I left that job. I was like, what? Are you crazy? He's like, no. When you said that, it was like the voice of God saying to me, my values and my alignment are off. And I needed somebody to speak that into my life, and God just happened to use you as a mouthpiece. And I watched this man who is probably the most successful guy I know, literally, constantly seek wisdom, seek advice, looking for people, looking for wise counsel that would speak truth into his life where no one else would. And my question for you today is who are you listening to? Who are you getting input from? I know you might be like, well, that's great. I don't have those people in my life. I don't have those kind of godly friends or anyone to help me or anyone to counsel me. Here's what I would tell you. We say this all the time. Are you in a Coastal Connect group? Are you in a connect group? This is a great weekend for you to connect with some people that are passionately pursuing God and here's why we push this so much, because your spiritual and your emotional health are dependent on it. Like you need people. You are not designed to do life on your own. And if you're doing life on your own, or you're just getting advice from people that don't seek and know God, like you're getting yourself in a world of trouble. Like I think you got to find some people that you respect and you value, and you can pull them aside and say, man, can I run something by you? That's what you get in community. And here's what I found is that it actually shows maturity when you invite advice into your life. It's only immature people that think they know better than everybody else. And what I found is that when you get open to that, all of a sudden other people start to discover that in your humility you have wisdom. They start asking you for advice. It's a biblical principle. What you sow is what you reap. So that means you can't surround yourself with a bunch of yes men who will just tell you everything you want to hear. You actually need to surround yourself with some people that will call out your blind spots, that will challenge you in areas that you need to be challenged in, that will push you further to become the man or the woman that God has called you to be, because we all need wise counsel in our life. And while the story of Rehoboam shows that he isn't listening to wise counsel, in the New Testament, there is a passage in Hebrews chapter 12 that I think is an incredible little passage that kind of shows the Christian race. And the race in Christianity is not a sprint, it's actually a marathon. This is what it says in Hebrews chapter 12. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith. Such a great phrase in that passage. A great cloud of witnesses. What it paints is it paints this supportive group of people that are encouraging you and challenging you and watching you and lifting you up and correcting you and cheering you on. Now, what's interesting, I started thinking about clouds, and I don't know about you guys, but I put everything in the cloud on my computer. Anybody else with me there? Like, everything that's important in life is in the cloud. Like, all of my sermons are in the cloud. All of my important documents are in the cloud. Why? Because I need access to them at any point in time, anywhere I go. So my question for you is who's in your cloud? Who's in your cloud of witnesses that are cheering you on as you run the Christian race and this life? Who's in your cloud giving you biblical wisdom and godly advice and wise counseling and mentoring? Sometimes you need to be heard where you just go and say something, and what God will do is God will use godly people through His Spirit to speak directly into your life. Here's why. Godly people can be a megaphone for hearing God's will. Doesn't matter who you are. All of us can hear from people. Typically, they're older and they're wiser, but sometimes you can even hear from your kids. I know recently Alexander was at our house and we were there, and I don't know about you guys. He's 6 years old. 6-year-olds are exhausting. They are like the Energizer Bunny. We went and we swam for like 4 hours. I was exhausted from that. And we get out of the pool and he's like, Papa, can we play cars? Will you come play a game with me? Will you read to me? He's like giving me 37 objectives in like a 30-second span. And like, he's like, come on, Papa, come over here, sit with me. Let's race the cars on the track. He has like 37 tracks and I'm like, can I just sit on the couch and veg for a minute? Like, I am tired. I am 46. You're 6. I have 40 years more of energy expended. And I heard God speak through that little boy. He's like, He just wants to spend time with you. And as much as He wants to spend time with you, I'm constantly at you. Will you read my word? Will you spend time in prayer? Will you? Not because I want you to do all these things, but because I want to spend time with you. It's like gut punch from my 6-year-old. And so sometimes God will use your infant, your toddler, but most of the time He's going to use people because He's a creative God who relishes new and refreshing ways of getting His message to you through a variety of mouthpieces. So I want to give you 4 characteristics of godly counsel because I think this is important. Don't just go take advice from anybody. 4 characteristics. Number 1, a person who fears God. Proverbs 9:10 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Wisdom starts with how they view and see God. And let me say this. A lot of people love God, they just don't fear Him. And there's a big difference. Many of you love God. You come in here and you sing worship songs and do all those things. The problem is you don't have a reverence for Him to where you obey His commands. So while you love Him with your lips, your life does not signify that you actually do. Because there is a discrepancy there because you don't see Him as a holy and just God who is not just your friend, but He is your Savior and Lord. Which means that when He says, spend time with me, get in my word, prayer, tithe, all those things, those are not options based on how you feel. They are commands based on His lordship. And because I fear God, I obey His commands. You're looking for somebody that their life is a reflection of that. If it's not, it might be some good secular wisdom, but it's not godly wisdom. Because their devotion of their life determines the godliness of that wisdom. Here's how you know God is their source. Their money's not their source. Their title's not their source. Their relationship with God is their source of everything. Number 2, they live in humility. They're successful, but yet they're humble at the same time. What that means is that they don't know it all. They just know where it all comes from. Here's really the big kicker. They live with a confidence and not yet an arrogance. And you've seen people that are confident and arrogant, and they're not a lot of fun to be around. But you've seen people that are confident and humble, and you're like, man, there's something about them that is just attractional. Because they understand that everything they have and everything they produce did not come from them. They know what the source of that is. which creates a humility in their life. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 2 says, when pride comes, then comes disgrace. But here's what happens when you're humble. Humility, it comes with some wisdom. Number 3, they've lived some life. Like, they've gone through some stuff. Job chapter 12, verse 12, wisdom is with the aged and understanding in the length of days. Like, you're looking for somebody that's overcome. You're looking for somebody, some experience. Like, you're looking for somebody that has gone through some junk in life and come out. You're looking for somebody that's overcome the addiction. You're looking for the person that has a healthy marriage after a struggle. Like, don't go ask the person that has been divorced 10 times, like, hey, what's your marriage advice? They're not experienced in helping you. A lot of us, we're going to our peers who don't know any better than we do. Instead of going to some aged, some wise people that have survived some trouble and some tragedy in life to get wisdom. Number 4, they're successful in the area that you're seeking guidance. Ecclesiastes 10:10, using a dull axe requires great strength. Like, if you try to do it on your own, it's gonna take way more from you. So sharpen the blade. How do you sharpen the blade? You get around people that are, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens the countenance of his friend. You gotta get around some people that are different than you, they're more experienced than you, that they can come and they can sharpen your life. That's the value of wisdom. What does it do? It helps you succeed. And I'm just telling you, like, you gotta have those kind of people in life. I'll never forget when I was trying to decipher, like, is God calling me to plant a church, or is this just bad pizza? I remember I sat down with my pastor. He's the only person I know I needed to sit down with. And I said, Pastor Randy Bezet, I trust you with my life. You're my spiritual mentor. Here's what I think God is saying. Whatever you say, I will do. He said, TJ, that's from God. You're ready. Let's figure that out. So I didn't need another ounce of wisdom. Why? I needed to go to the person that was sharp in my life that would tell me I'm on the right path. Because Proverbs 11:14 says, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. Proverbs 15:22, without wise counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to start to determine who are the godly people that you would text, that you would call, that you would approach when you have a decision that you need to make and you need an answer from heaven right here, right now. Who's the godly voice in your life that you'd want to hear when you're facing marital challenges or dating questions? Who would you trust when you're considering a career move or going out and starting your own business? Who would you confide in and talk with when the enemy keeps kicking your butt day after day after day so that you can get breakthrough and have freedom in your life? Who is in your cloud? And if you don't know who that is, today I would challenge you to start to take some steps that would discover some of those people. I think connect groups are a great place for you to do that. Maybe for you it's not getting in a connect group, it's that godly, wise person that said, hey, call me anytime you need something. And you've never called. Maybe today's the day that you need to call and go, man, you have some wisdom that I don't have, and I need your input. And maybe, just maybe, God's going to speak through them, because the most tangible way that God speaks is through his people. Would you guys bow your heads and pray with me? God, I just come before you. And I thank you for your people that are wanting to hear your voice. And God, you're speaking way more clearly than a lot of us are listening. God, my prayer right now is that you would give each and every person in here discernment to determine who are the people that need to be in their cloud, who are the people in their marriage, who are the people in their financial area, who are the people in their career aspects, who are the people when it comes to their parenting and to their children, when it comes to their marriage, who are the people that they need in their life and they need to engage in with relationships so they can hear your voice. God, I pray that they would have the courage to step out and be bold, that they would walk in humility and go, man, I don't have all the answers, but I believe that God can speak through you. I believe that God can give you a clear and concise vision or thought that can radically transform my life, just like the thought that TJ gave Larry just totally shifted the trajectory of his life. God, I thank you that you're a God that's speaking all the time. God, would you open up our ears to tune into the frequency, not just of your voice, but the voice of your people who you're trying to speak through. Thank you for speaking to us. But God, I also know that there's some people in here that you haven't tuned into the most important voice, and that's the voice of God in heaven. In fact, the Bible says that our sin actually separates us from God. It creates a divide where God is distant from us because of our mistakes and our past and our screw-ups and our mess-ups. But in the middle of that distance, God said, man, I'm going to create a bridge. And the bridge that he created was through his son, Jesus Christ. That we wouldn't have to be distant from God, but we could be connected to him through his death, burial, and resurrection. That we could have a life and we could have it more abundantly. That we could have a direct line to the creator of the universe. And maybe you're here and you're going, you know what, TJ, I don't have that in my life. I'm missing that inside of me and I need that. I want you to know you can have that today. It comes through a simple yet significant prayer of surrender to the lordship of Jesus Christ in your life. And if that's you, I would love to pray a simple yet significant prayer with you. If that's you, on the count of three, if you just slip your hands up, I'd love to pray with you. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and slip them up, slip them up, slip them up. Hands going up all over the place. Yeah, lots of people. If you just pray this prayer in your heart as I prayed out loud, say, God, thank you for loving me. Thank you for making a way where there was no way, for creating a bridge through the death, burial, and resurrection of your son, Jesus. Jesus, I ask you to come into my heart and take over my life. I surrender my will and my way. I ask you to forgive me of my past, change my present, secure my future. Thank you for loving me. And God, here's what I ask. I ask that you would speak to me, that you would open up my earways to hear your voice and be obedient to whatever you say. I choose to follow you all the days of my life. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. And everybody said,